Good evening, BookTube. This is Johnny. Time to make a video. It is today, February the 2nd. It is a Friday night. It is 8:25 here in Holland, Michigan. We live along the lake shore of Lake Michigan. So we get lake effect snow. It could be snowing here in Holland, and 25 miles inland it's not snowing. So it's been snowing, but when you live here in Holland, what can you do? I thought I would make a video since my wife works the next 3 nights, Sunday. No, but today's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then she's 5 days she's off. We're waiting for the birth of our 6th grandchild, Coralie, who is right over in Grand Rapids, which is about 25 miles inland, going east of Holland. So we're waiting. Last night we had FaceTime on my wife's cell phone with our youngest son Josiah and his wife Hannah and their newborn, well, not newborn, 4 or 5 months old Marika Rose. She's getting big. And my wife had FaceTime with our daughter there in Denver with our other 3 grandchildren. Margaret, well, Louisa is the oldest, Margaret, and Jack. So all is well today. The Lord's been good, His faithfulness. And today I ended in my February 2018 diary. I ended on page 84. So tomorrow on February the 3rd, 2018, I'll be on page 85. 85 tomorrow. I really haven't been writing much. I've been writing this month just 2 pages. I don't know. I'm still out of it. I think I've been out of it for weeks. My wife, every time I mention to my wife, I'm out of it. I don't feel good. I don't feel right. She said, I'm going to call the doctor. But then she knows I don't like going to the doctor. So I just waited out. Maybe when spring comes, I'll feel a lot better. So in my last video, I think I talked about what I want to read in February 2018. And I mentioned a lot of religious books, and I didn't really show any secular books. And after I made that video, I realized there are things that I do, like I mentioned that when I try to read books that I was reading a month ago or 2 months ago, I get kind of repulsed. I just can't get into it. But lately I have found myself kind of drawn to these books. And I showed you this book I got a couple weeks ago at the Book Nook, the library used bookstore, The Making of the President, 1960, A Narrative History of American Politics and Action. This is the year of the Kennedy's presidential campaign and up until he was elected. And then the next Friday, I found this book, The Making of the President, 1964, by Theodore H. This is when, after the assassination of Kennedy, that it was right, Kennedy was assassinated right in the 3rd, he was killed in 63, 64. Anyway, this is leading up to the presidential campaign of Lyndon B. Johnson after Kennedy was assassinated. So when I got these books out, I remembered I had this book downstairs in our library, The Tragedy of Lyndon Johnson by Eric E. Goldman. And this also starts at the time when, after the assassination of Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson is sworn into the office of president, and all that took place in those last days of that year, and then leading up to his running for president. And it was Eric F. Goldman was asked by Lyndon B. Johnson to be, I know what you would say, he was an historian at Princeton, and Lyndon B. Johnson, I won't go into all the details, asked him to head up what we call a think tank, a group of men that Lyndon B. Johnson could ask, like advisors on foreign, on different things. I don't know. Anyway, I got this out, and I've been looking at this. I just been basically looking at those first couple of months, the first year leading up to Lyndon B. Johnson running for president. I did find at a thrift store this book, 1,000 Days, John F. Kennedy in the White House. I showed you a while back that I found a paperback copy of this book up in Grand Haven, their library used bookstore, The Tattered Page, or Cheap Stacks, I'm not sure. And I got this for 50 cents. I had a paperback, and this covers the 1,000 Days of John F. Kennedy in the White House by author S. Schlesinger. As you guys know, I have been reading this biography on Schlesinger, The Imperial Historian by Richard Atlas. I've been reading this today, and so I got these books. So today is a Friday, is when I volunteer at the local library used bookstore, the Book Nook. And these are the books I got when I was there Monday. They had this volume at the Book Nook, The Years of Lyndon Johnson, Master of the Senate. This is Robert A. Caro's. This is the third volume of his monumental, or his huge biography on Lyndon B. Johnson. This covers his years in the Senate. He was a senator he was in politics at least 30 years. I'm not sure the whole time he was a senator, but he was from Texas. And anyway, I saw this volume and I picked it up, and then I noticed today there was another volume by it in the same series by Robert A. Caro, The Years of Lyndon Johnson, The Passage of Power. This covers that time right after the assassination when he is sworn into presidency after the assassination of Kennedy. So I'm hoping to find the first two volumes of this, which I think is, The Path to Power, Means of Ascent. Path to Power came out in 98. Means of Ascent came in 1990. Master of the Senate came out in 2002. And Passage of Power came out in 2012. So now I'm out to get the whole 4-volume set. Also, I got at the Book Nook, I got this for my free book. This is a book I've seen around BookTube, The Essex Serpent by Sarah Perry. This is my free book. And I also found at the Book Nook today a biography on Margaret Fuller, who was one of the American transcendentalists, along with Henry David Thoreau and Ralph Emerson. she was close friends with Ralph Emerson, and I collect books and biographies on Margaret Fuller. And this one I didn't have. I got this for $3. Also, I got out of the when I was thinking about Lyndon B. Johnson, if you look through our library, I collect books on Nixon, Kennedy, Eisenhower, Truman, Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt, and on Lincoln, and I have some books on Grant and Woodrow Wilson, and because I'm a student of American history, I like history of politics in America, and I had this book. I remember Doris Kearns Goodwin is a very famous American historian, and she wrote this book, Lyndon Johnson, The American Dream, by Doris Kearns Goodwin. I got this out of the book, out of the lower level last night, and I've been looking at that on Johnson. I went to a thrift store yesterday, just local, and I found this book on a biography on Albert Einstein. This is Subtle is the Lord, the Science and Life of Albert Einstein by Abraham Paris. I just got another book. Last week I got a book by Abraham Paris, Odds and Ends on Albert Einstein, and this is his famous biography on Einstein. I mentioned I collect books on Albert Einstein, so I got that. And then I found this biography on Jane Addams. She was a social activist. She was in the suffrage movement, women's rights. She worked for the poor in the slums of Chicago, I think. Or I think it was Chicago. She worked, campaigned to end child labor, outspoken civil rights advocate. She advised every president from William McKinley to Franklin D. Roosevelt. She was a pacifist. She was opposed to World War I. She was the first American woman to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. I have her book, Hull House, which is a description of the poverty and the awful conditions that the poor lived in at that time. She lived the turn of the century. She opposed the First World War. It was like in the early 19th century, early 20th century. So this is a biography of hers. And then I found this book, Orphans of the Cold War, America and the Tibetan Struggle for Survival by John Kenneth Kloss. I got this book because I was always been kind of curious why the Dalai Lama left Tibet and the whole political and upheaval that led to his exile. So that's why I got this. And I got some books in the mail today. I got 2 books in the mail. I mentioned I was going to get the new Nicola Barker novel, Happy. I have been reading her earlier novel, The Darkmans. And like I said, I read almost 600 pages of this, and I have to get back into it. One thing about this novel, there's no narrative. It's just different stories, and nothing's really connected that much. There's a very subtle connection between the characters and the storyline, but it's not really leading to any kind of climax or any kind of ending. I'm sure it's just going to end with nothing, any resolution or any kind of sense of ending. But I was enjoying it, and I hope I can get back into it. So this is her new novel, that the winner of the Goldsmiths Prize. I got this from England, Happy. And then back onto the theme of Lyndon B. Johnson, I was on Amazon and it mentioned this book, The Building of the Great Society, Inside Lyndon Johnson's White House by Jonathan Zeitz. And I've always been, since reading all these books about Lyndon B. Johnson and his program called The Great Society, and it goes into what was all that was taking place in his White House after the Kennedy assassination. And so I just thought I just would read more, a little bit more in depth, so I got this book. So you might call these my Friday reads. Lyndon B. Johnson, An American Dream by Doris Kearns Goodwin. I'm reading Building the Great Society Inside Lyndon Johnson's White House by Jonathan Zeitz. And I started looking at this new novel by Nicol Barker, Happy. And I was reading today Schlesinger, the Imperial Historian. And I've been looking at Lyndon Johnson, The Tragedy of Lyndon Johnson by R.K. Goldman, and The Making of the American President by Theodore H. So these are the secular books I'm reading in the afternoons. When in the mornings I read the Bible, and I seek the Lord and read my Christian books if I can. Like I said, lately I've been kind of, I don't know what it is. Maybe the winter has gotten to me. I don't know. I just feel kind of blah and sick and tired and just weary of it all. But I just thought I'd show you these books. Friday reads, what I got at the Book Nook, what I got at a thrift store, what I got in the mail, where I'm at in my diary, etc., etc. So I hope you have a good weekend, and that I will, not sure if I'll make another video, I'm not sure. Thank you for the response to my video about the conversion of the Apostle Paul. I could talk about the Apostle Paul for hours and hours. He's one of my closest friends, somebody I dearly love, and has had a tremendous impact on my life. So I suppose this is it. I'll sign off. I'll download this video before I go to bed tonight. Hoping you had a good week, that you have a good weekend. Thank you for those subscribed. Thank you for the comments. And until next time, bye.